on the PBS app.
Tonight on Newswatch, smoky conditions blanket the region. We're live in Athens with more on the air quality conditions. Plus,
Bidenomics is about building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up.
President Biden touting his vision for growing the economy. And an Athens farmer growing her dreams and defying stereotypes. Newswatch starts right now. Good evening, I'm Connor Woodruff. Welcome to Newswatch. An air quality alert is in effect for the entire state of Ohio and West Virginia. Newswatch forecaster Emily Dietz is live in Athens with more on the hazardous conditions. Emily?
Connor, I'm here on Mill Street, and the smoke is not letting up. As you can see behind me, things are looking pretty hazy outside. Now here's a look at conditions earlier today in Athens. People across Ohio, West Virginia, and the entire Great Lakes region woke up to hazy conditions as smoke from wildfires in Canada spills into the U.S. The current air quality in Athens County is healthy, but counties in the northern part of our region are categorized as very unhealthy. The air quality alert issued by the Ohio and West Virginia Environmental Protection Agencies will be in effect until midnight tonight. So while I'm out here, it's all pretty warm. It's about in the 80s and things are pretty cloudy outside, but mostly hazy going on. As you can see from this map, we've got a lot of air quality alerts going on for Ohio, Indiana, a little bit in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Kentucky. So a lot of this smoke is coming down up from Canada. And take a look at this map. As you can see, these dark red regions are showing a lot of thick areas of smoke. This map is showing how smoke moves through the atmosphere. So it's really a lot of strong movement. I want to direct your attention up to the not West Virginia, up towards the Wisconsin area. There's a little bit of circulation going on, so we have low pressure going on both near the surface and in the upper atmosphere. So it's really helping to control a lot of that smoke, directing it down south. Now, why is it down south instead of east? Well, if you look a little bit to the east and northeast of Ohio, you may see a little bit of a dropping pattern going on, and that's really helping to hold the smoke into one area. Now, if you look towards the west near Texas and Oklahoma area, you see some wind moving in southwest. Between that in from the southwest, the smoke being pulled in from that low pressure system and that dropping pattern going on from the northeast, that's really forcing the smoke into this one area, leaving it nowhere else to go. We're seeing these conditions for the next couple of days as the system slowly makes its way east. Even though we aren't seeing a lot of cloudy skies going on in the next day or two, we'll be seeing a lot of haze. Be sure to stay inside to be safe. Now, you may notice a lot of high pressure going in our area right now. It's really just clearing up clouds in the sky. That's not really anything for haze. Since this haze is moving up through a couple different layers of the atmosphere, this upper atmosphere winds really control a lot of the weather that we see, the smoke that we see, and they're pretty strong. So high pressure just on the surface doesn't really do much. Now that low pressure is up near Wisconsin area, that's where a lot of the smoke is circulating from. And when you have low pressure both at the surface and in your mid-level atmosphere, that really stacks up and becomes a strong system. Seeing a lot of that smoke really be directed towards that. Now tonight we'll expect to see mostly clear skies as far as clouds go, but it'll still be pretty hazy outside. I'm excited to get back into the studio and talk more about the rain we'll be expecting to see later this week. Back over to you, Connor.
Thanks, Emily. Restrictions on I-70 are taking effect today and tomorrow, according to the Ohio Department of Transportation. Starting at 7 tonight, the driving lane and 5th Street off-ramp on I-70 eastbound are closed for pavement repairs, and only one lane is open on I-70 westbound because of road repairs. The restrictions will be in place until 7 a.m. tomorrow. Officials are warning Ohioans about an identity theft scheme targeting driver's licenses around the state. The Ohio Department of Public Safety says thieves use stolen information to answer security questions on the Bureau of Motor Vehicles' website to get a reprinted driver's license or ID card sent to them. Investigators are not sure where thieves are getting the personal information to break into these accounts. The BMV has already discovered 90 instances of theft here in the state. Be sure to keep an eye out for letters from the BMV mentioning changes or decisions that you did not make. Putnam County Commissioners passed an ordinance preventing minors from attending adult live entertainment performances. More than 20 members of the public complained after the Pride for All event at Valley Park and Hurricane featured a drag show. The ordinance only applies to unincorporated areas, which the Commission President Andy Skidmore says accounts for roughly half of the county's residents. The ordinance has received criticism from the American Civil Liberties Union of West Virginia, which in a statement says that Putnam County sided with censorship. Skidmore says their intention is to protect children. A bill to protect LGBTQ+ kids, Ohioans, is introduced for the 11th time. Senate Minority Leader Nikki Antonio introduced the bill to protect LGBTQ+ members from discrimination and has been introducing it at every legislative session since 2011. The bill would protect Ohioans from being fired or denied housing because of their gender identity. More than 1,300 Ohio businesses have signed the bill despite recent boycotting of stores or products supporting the LGBTQ+ community. Representative Mike Skindell says regardless of how companies' reactions, they're not revoking non-discrimination policies. The two-year state budget deadline is only 2 days away, and Ohio Governor Mike DeWine is urging lawmakers to keep working and pass a budget by Friday's deadline. According to Representative Jay Edwards' office, differences between the House and Senate versions of the state budget are still unresolved. Regardless, DeWine is staying positive. He says he doesn't know what day the budget will land on his desk, but he thinks it's on track. DeWine says he wants money for the Science of Reading program, mental health treatment, and school security officers in the new budget. Coming up after the break, President Biden touts his economic wins as inflation and job cuts continue. Plus, severe weather delays holiday travel across the country.
I'll be back in the studio to tell you all more about the rain that's going to be coming in later this week.
In a New Mexico desert, traces of the Ice Age.
All these are fossil footprints.
Giant mammoths, sloths, and humans. But from when?
10,000 years older than the established thought.
Is this the earliest evidence of humans in North America?
Here's our proof, footprints of our ancestors.
Ice Age Footprints on Nova.
Wednesday at 9 on WOUB.
Thanks to viewers like you, we've been able to tell America's stories on this PBS station. Help us continue to tell these stories now and for future generations by including this station in your charitable plans.
Supporting this PBS station through a charitable gift annuity is easy. To find out more, call the number on your screen or visit this website. Thank you.
So much of our behavior is governed by our sense of time, yet questions about time's fundamental nature remain unanswered. On The Articulate Hour, artists and scholars discuss the tension between scientifically measured, socially constructed, and individually perceived time. Join us for The Articulate Hour.
Friday at 10 on WOUB.
On Hemingway.
Whatever happened to him now, he considered of no importance, as long as he could write.
World War II leaves lasting scars.
He had seen so many things that he could not unsee.
A classic masterpiece.
Everything about him was old, except his eyes.
And a descent into darkness.
The history of mental illness in the family had to be on his mind.
Don't miss the final chapter of Hemingway.
Thursday at 9 on WOUB.
President Joe Biden delivering an address today on the economy, promoting what the White House is referring to Bidenomics. His remarks come as several economic indicators seem to point in a positive direction, but continued inflation and job cuts in tech and finance, along with a hawkish Federal Reserve, could spell trouble down the line. Mike Valerio has the latest.
President Joe Biden in Chicago Wednesday, touting his vision for growing the economy.
Bidenomics is about building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down.
And the strength of the post-pandemic recovery, highlighting the strong jobs market and falling inflation.
We created 13.4 million new jobs. More jobs in 2 years than any president has ever made in 4.
While acknowledging people are still struggling.
I'm not here to declare victory on the economy. I'm here to say we have a plan that's turning things around incredibly quickly. We have more work to do.
The president's optimistic outlook, however, is not necessarily in line with how Americans feel.
There is essentially something in this economy for everyone, and that can inform a lot of arguments that may be diametrically opposed to one another.
A May CNN poll revealing 66% of Americans disapprove of the president's handling of the economy as financial indicators continue to send mixed messages.
On the one hand, for example, you have a high level of job cuts and layoffs. On the other hand, you still have a close to historically low unemployment rate.
Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell signaling Wednesday more rate hikes lie ahead.
What you see is stronger than expected growth, a tighter than expected labor market, and higher than expected inflation. So that tells us that although policy is restrictive, it may not be restrictive enough.
More aggressive action from the Fed could still lead to a recession. What form it will take remains unclear. I'm Mike Valerio reporting.
The Biden administration is announcing new investments in sustainable and equitable infrastructure. The $2.2 billion will finance 162 community-led projects as part of the administration's Investing in America's Agenda. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is set to announce the funding in South Carolina, specifically at the site of a pedestrian bridge and multimodal transit hub project receiving $23 million from the federal government. Buttigieg says these grants will help create new jobs, improve safety, fight climate change, and advance equity. The Justice Department has taken action against dozens of people for defrauding Medicare and Medicaid. The two-week enforcement effort resulted in federal and state charges against 78 defendants, including 24 doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals. The scheme spans 16 states and resulted in $2.5 billion of alleged fraud. Officials say much of the fraud targeted the elderly, people with mental issues, and people addicted to opioids. One case accuses doctors of plotting with other telemarketers to get kickbacks for pushing unnecessary medical equipment. Another scheme allegedly involved buying HIV medications from patients, then repackaging them to sell to pharmacies. Prosecutors say in some instances the wrong medications, broken pills, and even pebbles were sold. An investigation into what happened is underway as pieces of the Titan submersible are pulled from the ocean floor. The Horizon Arctic, the ship carrying the debris, returned to a Canadian port today. The submersible imploded on its way to tour the wreckage of the Titanic last week, and crews have been working to find and bring the pieces of the craft to the surface. All the debris will be turned over to investigators in the U.S. and Canada to try to figure out what caused the implosion.
I am back in studio, and let me tell you, it is pretty hazy outside. Right now, it's also pretty warm out too. It's about 79. There's a couple of clouds in the sky. But right now, a lot of Ohio, as well as Kentucky, a little bit of West Virginia, Indiana, and Pennsylvania are under an air quality alert from all of the smoke coming down from Canada. Now, we've got going on is we've got a little bit of low pressure throughout the atmosphere up near Wisconsin, near Canada, and that's pushing all of this air down towards the south, as well as some high pressure going on just to the northeast of us, and that's helping to direct all of the smoke down in our direction. So we're going to be seeing this hang around for just a little bit longer these next couple of days. So even though we've got a little bit of surface high pressure going on and we see mostly sunny skies expected for tomorrow, that's just talking about clouds. We are still going to see some haze going on. Tomorrow we'll see a high of about 80, so slightly cooler than today, but overall a pretty warm day. And tonight will be a low of about 57 with those mostly clear skies. Now things are still heating up across the country. Down south, we're down in the hundreds and in the 90s as well, so it's pretty warm going on. And luckily for us, we won't be seeing things quite as hot as that. We might just expect to get up into the upper 80s these next coming days. Now you can see a little bit of rain out to the west of us. There's a little bit of a system starting to develop out near Iowa, near Illinois, and that's going to be expected to move in going on Thursday night, mainly into Friday. So tomorrow we'll see a high of about 88 with partly sunny skies. So things will really be warming up as we move these next couple of days. Now tomorrow, with that rain coming on in, we will be under both a general and a marginal risk for severe weather. So that's expected to move on into the area. So we may be seeing some pop-up thunderstorms, a bit of heavy rain going on. And tomorrow, that's going to be from that low pressure system sort of sitting over the Midwest, lower Midwest area. That's going to be making its way towards the east as our high pressure leaves us alone. So we'll see tomorrow morning will look pretty nice, but by tomorrow night, that's when we start to see a lot of this weather start to make its way into the area. So maybe seeing some pop-up thunderstorms going on, and by Friday, that's when we really see this low pressure really take an effect. There's a bit of a warm front attached to it, so we might see a little bit of warming going on, but right behind it is going to be some cooler weather. So as we move into the next couple of days, Thursday we're looking at partly sunny skies, but on Friday, we're looking at a 70% chance of thunderstorms, and things will cool down a little bit since we're going to be seeing a lot of cloud coverage and a lot of rain coming in. And that rain-cooled air will be a nice refreshing, but that's not going to slow us down too much. For Saturday, we'll see a high of about 87, another 70% chance of showers, and another rainy weekend. I think this is the third rainy weekend we've had in a row, but hopefully that'll let up later in the week. It'll be an 80% chance of showers looking on Sunday, high of about 82. Monday, things will slow down a little bit with a 60% chance of showers, and by Tuesday, we'll be at a 50% chance of thunderstorms, all in the 80s throughout this upcoming week, and our lows will be in the 60s.
Thanks, Emily. Extreme weather combined with other factors is snarling air travel ahead of the July 4th holiday, leaving thousands of passengers stranded at airports and, in many cases, without their luggage. At least one major carrier and the Federal Aviation Administration are pointing fingers at each other over who was the least prepared, with passengers feeling caught in the middle. Laura Aguirre has more.
Now, you can't control the weather. We've had very tough weather the last few days.
Severe storms across much of the U.S. this week have played a role in thousands of flight delays and cancellations since the weekend. But there's more to it.
In the process of waiting for the lightning to clear up, our pilot timed out.
The always ticking clock on air crew hours and the FAA's ongoing shortage of air traffic controllers can stretch any weather delays and passenger misery out for days.
If you like my clothes, this is day 3.
They didn't have enough flight attendants for our flight, and it got pushed back. We got on the plane, and then the pilots timed out.
The pilot said that there's a mechanical failure, and they won't be able to fly the plane.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg praising the airlines for operational improvements on Wednesday, but adds there's a long way to go.
What's different this year compared to a year ago is that there is more cushion. We're seeing more of the staffing that there needs to be.
Storms and staffing headaches aside, Secretary Buttigieg notes that U.S. air travelers have more rights this year when flying, and they should use them.
Anybody planning a trip, and a lot of Americans are, can go to flightrights.gov and get more information about what you are owed in the event that you get stuck.
That may still not be enough for some frustrated flyers.
We're going to drive to Minneapolis because they can't get us out until Friday at the earliest.
Reporting for Newswatch, I'm Laura Aguirre.
There's plant-based meat, and now there's lab-grown chicken. The USDA has approved the production and sale of cultivated meat in the United States. Supporters say it's a step forward in creating cruelty-free food, but not everyone is behind the new option. Jen Sullivan has a closer look.
Meat without the slaughter. Lab-made animal protein from the companies Good Meat and Upside Foods is now clear for production and sale in the U.S.
We're just trying to make the same product people have loved their entire lives a different way.
But just because it looks the same, tastes the same, and is just as safe, would you eat chicken cultivated in a lab? Well, you won't see lab meat at your local store anytime soon. Here's what you should know now. 1. How is it made? The meat is made from animal cells and is grown in massive bioreactors.
We can produce a lot of muscle tissue directly from a very small amount of cells, and then we feed it to other people.
2. What are the benefits? Advocates of lab meat say it's a more environmentally friendly way to produce meat. Animal agriculture is responsible for a significant amount of greenhouse gas emissions, which contributes to climate change. 3. Is it safe? Both the FDA and USDA have said some lab meats are safe for human consumption. But experts say animal cells are prone to contamination and say it faces long-term production challenges.
Can you grow them at scale in such numbers that it will make it competitive with beef or any other, it could be fish or poultry? And our answer to that, based just on well-known principles of biotechnology of fermentation processes, it doesn't look very good.
4. What about the cost? The exact pricing is still unclear. And finally, when can you buy it? No exact date has been announced, but Good Meat said production started immediately after USDA approval. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
After the break, how one Athens farmer turned her dreams into a reality. And to stay up to date on the latest from Newswatch, check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
Thanks to viewers like you, we've been able to tell America's stories on this PBS station. Help us continue to tell these stories now and for future generations by including this station in your charitable plans.
Supporting this PBS station through a charitable gift annuity is easy. To find out more, call the number on your screen or visit this website. Thank you.
On Hemingway. Whatever happened to him now, he considered of no importance, as long as he could write.
World War II leaves lasting scars.
He had seen so many things that he could not unsee.
A classic masterpiece.
Everything about him was old, except his eyes.
And a descent into darkness.
The history of mental illness in the family had to be on his mind.
Don't miss the final chapter of Hemingway.
Thursday at 9 on WOUB.
Here's what's new this month with Passport.
I just want to get to the bottom of it.
Why should you risk your neck?
Because somebody has to.
I would do anything to get some answers.
You can't solve them all, Ridley.
It's like a big love story.
These and all your favorite shows are available with Passport. Support your PBS station and stream more with Passport on the PBS app.
So much of our behavior is governed by our sense of time, yet questions about time's fundamental nature remain unanswered. On The Articulate Hour, artists and scholars discuss the tension between scientifically measured, socially constructed, and individually perceived time. Join us for The Articulate Hour.
Friday at 10 on WOUB.
When 28-year-old Molly Sowash completed her first internship on a farm during college, she would have never imagined that less than 10 years later she'd have one of her own. Newswatch reporter Morgan Anderson brings us more on her story.
Molly Sowash grew up just north of Columbus in Worthington, and any chance she could get, she would visit her uncle and aunt's farmland in Athens.
I didn't grow up here, but I learned to love nature through being here as a kid.
That love turned into an underlying passion. Molly went off to college in Minnesota to study English, but kept being pulled back to agriculture.
I was able to intern and work on a couple farms, particularly one in western Minnesota that was raising grass-finished beef. And I was there a short time, but they made a big impression on how to use livestock to regenerate the land and actually leave it better than they found it.
After college and time working in agricultural nonprofits, she decided to call Southeast Ohio home. Her uncle and aunt gave her the property she grew up on to farm with in March of 2020.
I got my first set of calves that spring and kind of learned from them and hopefully them from me as we figured out cattle ranching.
6 months later, she met her now fiance, CJ. Together, the pair farm on just over 120 acres of land. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, the average age of the American farmer is 58 years old and male. And while Molly doesn't look like your typical farmer, she's not the only one.
It's been interesting to be a woman and beginning farmer and first-generation farmer trying to learn this, but I've also had some models. And that first farm I interned on in Minnesota, there was like a really amazing female farmer and her husband leading up the charge.
Moso Farm raises grass-fed and grass-finished beef. Molly says her farm is her way of doing her part in helping the world.
I think farming for me was an opportunity to think globally and act locally, to be like, I can't, keep reading about this big threat of climate change or the incredible, devastating loss of biodiversity and just sit here and read about it. I also know that our little piece of land is probably not gonna solve either of those things. But doing something and seeing these, 35 acres of pasture change, even if it's just the 3 short years that we've been farming, is a huge balm, I guess, to that.
Learning to do and doing to learn, Molly and CJ are building for the years they have yet to see, one day on Moso Farm at a time. Reporting for Newswatch, I'm Morgan Anderson in Athens.
To follow along with Molly and CJ's farm story, you can check out their Instagram page at Moso Farmin'. When we return, an out-of-this-world soundtrack. NASA lets us listen to the stars. But first, here's a look at what's coming up tonight on your public television station.
On Hemingway.
Whatever happened to him now, he considered of no importance, as long as he could write.
World War II leaves lasting scars.
He had seen so many things that he could not unsee.
A classic masterpiece.
Everything about him was old, except his eyes.
And a descent into darkness.
The history of mental illness in the family had to be on his mind.
Don't miss the final chapter of Hemingway.
Thursday at 9 on WOUB.
So much of our behavior is governed by our sense of time, yet questions about time's fundamental nature remain unanswered. On The Articulate Hour, artists and scholars discuss the tension between scientifically measured, socially constructed, and individually perceived time. Join us for The Articulate Hour.
Friday at 10 on WOUB.
In a New Mexico desert, traces of the Ice Age.
All these are fossil footprints.
Giant mammoths, sloths, and humans. But from when?
10,000 years older than the established thought.
Is this the earliest evidence of humans in North America?
Here's our proof, footprints of our ancestors.
Ice Age footprints on Nova.
Wednesday at 9 on WOUB.
Here's what's new this month with Passport.
I just want to get to the bottom of it.
Why should you risk your neck?
Because somebody has to.
I would do anything to get some answers.
You can't solve them all, Ridley.
It's like a big love story.
These and all your favorite shows are available with Passport. Support your PBS station and stream more with Passport on the PBS app.
Finally tonight, so much for the sounds of silence. NASA has used technology to add a mesmerizing soundtrack of cosmic harmonies to the images of distant galaxies. Take a listen to the Compact Galaxy Group Stevens Quintet.
The Compact Galaxy Group Stevens Quintet.
This trippy timpani symphony is produced using sonification, where astronomical data of objects in space, such as wavelengths of light, are assigned sounds. Savor the eerie audio emanations of the binary systems Aquarii, the Compact Galaxy Group, Stevens Quintet, and M104, one of the constellation Virgo's largest galaxies. The pictures may be worth 1,000 words, but NASA says sonification allows you to hear the beauty of space. Emily, is there good weather for some stargazing the rest of this week?
Well, unfortunately, not too much. Even though we're seeing mostly clear skies tonight in the low of 57, there's still going to be a lot of haze going on from those wildfires up in Canada. Even though we see some low pressure over us right about now, that's only going to carry on for tonight and into tomorrow, only clearing out some clouds. We see some low pressure developing out to the west, and that's going to play an impact moving on later this week. But tomorrow we'll see a high of about 88, so man, we're getting close to the 90s up here. It's going to be pretty warm with partly sunny skies. Friday we have a low pressure system moving in that's going to bring some rain for us this weekend, and hopefully that won't impact us too much this 4th of July.
Thanks, Emily. That does it for our broadcast this evening. Thanks for watching. For Emily Dietz, I'm Connor Woodruff. Stay tuned for the PBS NewsHour coming up next. And remember, you can find the latest news anytime on WOUB.org or follow us on social media. We leave you tonight with a live look outside as smoke continues to blanket the region. Have a great night.
Donating your old car, motorcycle, or truck